Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into something that might just change how you think about note-taking and knowledge management. We're talking all about Obsidian.
Obsidian is really interesting because it goes beyond just jotting things down. It helps you make notes and synthesize information. You build a second brain,
Well,
basically.
second brain, that's awesome. But I gotta ask, what's the difference between making notes and just, collecting them? I feel like I have notes everywhere, but I'm not really using them.
You've hit on something really important. It's like the difference between having a library full of books you never read versus working in a lab, experimenting with ideas and connecting them.
So it's about making that information actually work for me, not just sitting there.
You got it. And one of the things that makes Obsidian unique is that it uses plain text files. Now, I know that might sound kind of boring, but trust me, it's really powerful.
Okay, I'm listening.
Uh,
Plain text, huh? What's so great about that?
For one, you actually own your data. No worries about a company shutting down and taking your notes with them. Plus, plain text is super fast and reliable. Obsidian can handle tons of notes without slowing down.
Gotcha. So it's like the difference between a clunky old computer and a brand new one.
Perfect analogy. And don't worry, plain text doesn't mean your notes have to be boring. You can still add formatting, images, videos, even diagrams with this thing called mermaid syntax.
Well, wait, diagrams. I can literally map out my idea.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to wrap your head around a complex process. You can create a flow chart visually to really understand it.
Okay, now that's cool. I see how Obsidian is different, but how does this second brain idea actually work?
At its core is the concept of a knowledge graph. Imagine each note as a point on a map and the connections between them as roads. As you make more notes and links, this map, or your knowledge graph, reveals how everything fits together.
So it's like I'm building a visual map of what I know.
You got it. And the best part is Obsidian automatically updates links, even if you change a note's title. No more broken links. It's magic.
That's so smart. Okay, so plain text, linking, and this knowledge graph thing. What are some practical things I can actually do in Obsidian?
One of the most powerful techniques is using daily notes.
Daily notes, fill me in. I think I've heard of that.
It's simple, but it changes the game. Every day, you start a new note with the date as the title. It becomes your hub for thoughts, to-dos, anything, and you can link it to other notes so all your ideas are connected.
It's like a journal, a planner, everything in one place.
Exactly. And because it's dated, it becomes a timeline of your thinking.
I like that.
Mm.
What about when I'm taking notes on specific things like books or articles?
There are a few ways to approach this. One technique is to create a top-level note for the source, like an overview.
So a main note for the book or article.
Exactly. Then, from that note, you create linked notes for specific concepts or quotes that stand out to you. It's like creating different layers of detail.
Ah, so I can zoom in and out of the big picture and the specific details.
You got it. And here's another important point about note-making in Obsidian. It's all about making the information your own. You're not just copying, you're rephrasing, summarizing, and connecting those dots in a way that makes sense to you.
So it forces me to really think about what I'm reading and make it meaningful.
Exactly. It helps you become an active participant in learning, not just a passive reader.
This is making so much sense. Now, I've heard you can really customize Obsidian. Is that true?
One of the best things about Obsidian is its flexibility. You can use themes to make it visually appealing, and you can even use emojis in your tags to make them fun and easy to remember.
On emojis in my tags. Tell me more.
Think about it. If you have a tag for productivity, you could add a rocket emoji to make it pop. Our brains love visual cues. It helps us remember things better.
That's brilliant. And it adds personality to my notes.
Exactly. Speaking of personality, you can also use prefixes in your note titles to categorize them quickly, like BK for book notes, WB for webinar notes, and so on.
That's so smart. But what happens when I have tons of notes? How do I keep it all organized?
That's where an index page comes in. Think of it as a guide to your Obsidian setup. You can document how you take notes, your tags, any templates you create. It's like a user manual for your own brain.
Ah, that makes sense. So I can keep track of my system as it grows.
You got it. And here's another tip. Keep your note titles short. This makes them easy to see in the graph view, which is a visual representation of all your interconnected notes.
Right, because long titles would get really messy on a graph.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's talk more about linking in Obsidian.
I'm ready. That seems like a core part of how it works.
It is. One technique I recommend is to organize your notes by where the content came from, but with a twist.
What do you mean?
Let's say you're taking notes on a webinar. You could have a dedicated note for that webinar, but then use tags and links to connect those notes to other ideas across your entire knowledge base.
So my notes are woven into everything else I know.
Exactly. It's about making connections, not just isolating information.
This is clicking for me. I've also heard people love Obsidian's multiple pane system. Can you explain that?
Obsidian lets you have several notes open side by side. It's like having multiple windows on your computer, but for your notes. You can reference information, compare ideas, and even drag and drop between them.
Wow, so I could have research in one pane and my draft in another.
Exactly. You have all your resources right there.
That's incredible for staying productive. It sounds like Obsidian can help me see connections in a whole new way.
And here's the best part. As you make more notes and link them, a structure naturally emerges. You don't have to force it, it just happens.
So it's not about creating a rigid system from the start.
Exactly. Your understanding grows and the structure follows. To help with this, you can use hub notes or maps of content.
Okay, tell me more about these hub notes.
Imagine a group of notes about a specific topic. A hub note becomes the central point, linking to all those related notes. It's like a dynamic, interconnected table of contents.
So it helps me see the big picture within a specific topic.
You got it. They're great for finding your way around and really understanding a topic.
This is amazing. Obsidian is so much more than I thought. It's like a tool for thinking and creating.
And we're just scratching the surface. There's a whole world of plugins that make Obsidian even more powerful. We'll dive into those next time.
Plugins. Can't wait to hear about those. This deep dive is just getting started. All right, I'm ready to hear all about these Obsidian plugins. What can they do?
Think of plugins like add-ons that make Obsidian even better, and there are so many. And new ones are always popping up.
It's like an app store, just for my notes. What are some examples?
If you're into task management, there are plugins that work with to-do list apps. You can manage your tasks right inside Obsidian and link them to your notes.
That would be amazing. Always trying to keep my to-do list connected to my notes.
There are also plugins that supercharge your daily notes. Imagine starting each day with a little prompt to reflect on yesterday and set intentions for today.
Ooh, I love that. What about plugins for taking better notes?
You bet. There are some that create flashcards from your notes, great for studying. Others can analyze your knowledge graph, showing you areas to explore further.
This is wild. It's like Obsidian keeps getting better and better.
Exactly. That's what makes Obsidian so special. It's not just a tool, it's a community and a way of thinking about knowledge that makes you a better learner.
I like that idea, feeling more in control of how I learn.
And remember, building your knowledge base in Obsidian is a journey. It's not about being perfect, it's about constantly learning and trying new things.
So it's okay if my notes are messy at first. I always feel like I need to have the perfect system before I start.
Messy is good. Think of it like a garden. You don't start with a perfectly manicured landscape. You plant seeds and let them grow organically.
I love that analogy. No pressure to be perfect right away.
Right. Embrace the mess and trust the process. Let's go back to that idea of making notes versus collecting them. It's really important for understanding what makes Obsidian so powerful.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. It's easy to just copy and paste stuff, but that's not really using Obsidian to its full potential, is it?
You're right. Obsidian is about taking different pieces of information and weaving them together into something new. It's about expressing your own unique thoughts and insights.
So it's about creating something new, not just consuming information.
Exactly. And writing things in your own words is crucial for this. When you force yourself to articulate an idea in writing, you really start to understand it.
It's about making it mine, not just storing it away.
Exactly. That's where linking and backlinks become really cool. When you link notes together, you're building a network of understanding. Backlinks show you all the connections to a particular note so you see the bigger picture.
It's like each note is a conversation, and the links connect all those conversations.
I like that. As you build this network, you'll start to see patterns and make connections you might not have seen otherwise.
This is making so much sense. I see how Obsidian can help me learn and grow.
And remember, it's not about speed. It's about taking your time and letting the ideas sink in.
That's good to remember. Everything is so fast-paced these days.
It is. Now let's talk about revisiting your notes. It's a really valuable technique that a lot of people overlook.
Revisiting. I'll be honest, I take notes and rarely look at them again. Why is it important to go back?
Well, when you revisit a note, you're seeing it with fresh eyes. You've had time to process the information, make connections, maybe even use that knowledge in real life.
It's like getting a new perspective on my own thoughts.
Exactly. And that's where tagging and searching in Obsidian can be really helpful. Tags let you group notes by theme, and the search function helps you find what you need quickly.
So I can easily find notes that are relevant to what I'm working on right now.
You got it. This process of revisiting and connecting can lead to some real aha moments.
I'm realizing that Obsidian is more about using information than just remembering it.
Exactly. Now, how about using Obsidian for your own ideas, not just for taking notes from other sources?
My own ideas, I hadn't thought of that.
Think of Obsidian as a brainstorming partner. Create notes for ideas, projects, anything you want to explore.
So it's like a digital space for playing with ideas.
You got it. You can journal, mind map, make outlines, whatever works for you.
And because everything is linked, I can connect those ideas to my research and other notes.
Precisely. As you start developing your ideas, you might want to try something called progressive summarization.
Progressive summarization. That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Let's say you have a long, detailed note about an idea. With progressive summarization, you create a series of summaries, getting shorter each time, highlighting the most important points.
So it's like creating different levels of summaries to get to the core idea.
Exactly. This makes it easy to grasp the main point, even if the original note is really long.
That's so helpful, especially when you need to share information quickly.
Speaking of sharing, have you ever struggled to explain a complex idea to someone who doesn't understand your notes?
Oh, all the time.
That's where Obsidian can really help. By linking your ideas together and creating that visual representation with the graph view, you're essentially creating a path for others to follow your thinking.
It's like giving them a tour of my second brain.
Exactly. And this can be really powerful for working together, teaching, or even just explaining something to a friend.
I never thought of it that way. So it's
Yeah.
not just a personal tool.
Right. Now let's talk about something that can really help you visualize and explain complex ideas. Embedding editable diagrams directly into your notes.
Yes. You mentioned mermaid syntax earlier.
Imagine you're trying to describe a system with lots of parts. Instead of just using words, you can create a visual diagram right in your Obsidian note using Mermaid.
So it's like having a built-in flowchart tool.
Exactly. And you can edit these diagrams as your understanding changes.
That's so cool. The diagram can evolve along with my thinking.
And because they're part of your notes, they're connected to everything else in your knowledge network.
This opens up so many possibilities. Diagrams are so helpful for understanding anything complicated.
And here's another great thing about diagrams. They can show you where you might be missing something.
What do you mean?
When you try to create a diagram, you might realize there are gaps in your knowledge or connections you hadn't thought of before.
So it forces me to think more deeply.
Exactly. It can lead you to new insights and questions.
I love how Obsidian is all about taking information and using it to learn and understand.
Now, how about we talk about using random note linking to spark new ideas?
Random note linking, what is that?
It's a fun way to get out of your usual thinking patterns. You open two random notes and try to find connections between them.
So it's like a game of chance for my brain.
You could say that. You might be surprised by the connections you make.
I like that. What are some other ways to get those creative juices flowing in Obsidian?
Prompts are great. You can have notes with prompts like, what problem am I trying to solve? Or what are 10 ideas for a new project?
So it's like giving myself a starting point.
Exactly. And you can link those prompts to other notes, research, or even other prompts.
This is amazing. I can use Obsidian for so many things.
Now let's talk about staying organized as your knowledge base grows. It can get tricky when you have tons of notes.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. What are your tips for staying on top of things?
Having a system for naming your notes is really important.
Like what?
Well, instead of random titles, you could use prefixes like BK for book notes, art for articles, idea for your own ideas. It makes them easy to find.
It's like creating my own filing system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Consistency is key. And using folders is also a great way to group related notes together. You can have folders for projects, topics, or types of notes.
So it's like a digital filing cabinet.
Exactly. And Obsidian lets you nest folders inside other folders so you can create a whole hierarchy.
That's awesome. Now I need to figure out what my system will be.
And don't forget about templates. They can really speed up your workflow.
Oh yeah, templates. We talked about those earlier.
Imagine you're always taking meeting notes. You can create a template with the headings and sections you always use, so you don't have to start from scratch each time.
That would save me so much time.
It does, and it makes all your notes consistent so they're easier to work with. Plus, you can use templates for any type of note you can think of.
This is blowing my mind. There's so much you can do with Obsidian.
And there are plugins that make templates even more powerful. You can even insert things like the date or title automatically.
It's like copy-paste on steroids.
Exactly. Speaking of fun things, let's talk about using emojis in your tags. It's a fun way to make them stand out.
Emojis. I'm listening.
You know how tags in Obsidian start with a hash sign? Well, you can use emojis in your tags to make them more visual and memorable.
So instead of hashtag productivity, I could use up productivity.
Exactly. Get creative with your emojis and use them to represent different types of notes or even different moods.
I love it. It makes my notes more fun.
And easier to remember. Our brains love visual cues.
Obsidian really has thought of everything.
Now, let's talk about something really important. Having a consistent workflow and set of conventions in Obsidian.
Okay, I definitely need help with that.
Think of it this way. Obsidian is super flexible, which is awesome, but it can also be overwhelming if you don't have some structure.
So how do I find the right balance?
It's about creating guidelines that work for you. For example, think about how you'll name your notes. We talked about prefixes, but you can also decide on things like capitalization and punctuation.
Like a style guide for my notes.
Exactly. Consistency is key here. The more consistent you are, the easier it will be to manage your notes.
Makes sense. What about conventions for tags?
One common convention is to use lowercase for tags and to separate words with hyphens. So hashtag productivity tips instead of hashtag productivity tips.
That's good for keeping things organized.
You got it. The most important thing is to find what works for you and to write it down somewhere so you don't forget.
That's where the index page comes in handy.
You got it. Your index page is like a home base for all your Obsidian guidelines.
This is making me realize that Obsidian is about building good habits for managing information, even though it's a digital tool.
You're exactly right. And those good habits can spill over into other parts of your life, making you a better learner and thinker overall.
This deep dive has been amazing. I'm learning so much.
And this is just the beginning. In our final part, we'll explore some even more advanced techniques and give you some ideas for using Obsidian to its full potential.
I can't wait. This is like an adventure into the world of knowledge. We've covered so much about Obsidian already. It's been quite a journey. I'm starting to see how it's more than just taking notes. It's really about making information work for you.
It is. Obsidian helps you become a more deliberate learner. It's all about taking control of your knowledge and creating a system that fits how you think.
And I really like that analogy of Obsidian being like a garden. It makes it feel less intimidating to get started. I don't have to have it all figured out perfectly from the beginning.
Exactly. Just start experimenting and let your knowledge base evolve naturally. It's a process, not a race to the finish line.
But with all these features and techniques, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Any tips for avoiding information overload?
That's a great point. It's easy to get carried away. But remember, Obsidian is a tool. It's all about using it intentionally.
Okay, so how can I be more intentional with it?
Be picky about what you put into Obsidian. Don't add everything you come across. Focus on the stuff that's really valuable and relevant to you.
So quality over quantity.
You got it. A smaller, well-organized knowledge base that you actually use is way better than a huge one that's just collecting dust.
Makes sense. What are some other ways to stay on track and not get overwhelmed?
Review and trim your notes regularly. As your knowledge base grows, you'll find some notes become outdated or less useful. Get rid of them or archive them.
Like weeding a garden to help the best plants grow.
Perfect analogy. And speaking of growth, one of the coolest things about Obsidian is being able to connect ideas and discover new insights.
Yeah. We talked about random note linking, which seems like a fun way to do that. What are some other techniques for getting those creative sparks flying?
I like to create notes specifically for reflecting on my learning, like reflections on learning or insights from this week.
So you're basically taking notes on your own thinking process.
Exactly. It helps me synthesize ideas and see patterns in what I'm learning.
I love that. It helps you see the bigger picture.
And speaking of the bigger picture, let's talk more about the graph view.
Ah, yes. The graph view. It's beautiful, but I'm still not sure how to use it well.
Think of the graph view as a map of all your knowledge. Each dot is a note, and the lines show how they're connected.
So it's like a visual representation of my second brain.
Exactly. It can help you see patterns and connections that you might miss otherwise. You might find clusters of notes about a specific topic or realize there are areas where you need to learn more.
That's amazing. It's like having X-ray vision for my own thoughts.
And it's interactive. Click any dot to open the note, zoom in and out to see different levels of detail. It's pretty cool.
I'm starting to see how Obsidian is so much more than just note-taking. It's a way to think visually and discover new connections.
And as you add more notes, your graph view will evolve. It's a living reflection of what you know.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
And one of the best things about Obsidian is that sense of discovery you get. As you explore your notes, you'll find all sorts of unexpected connections and insights.
Like a treasure hunt in my own brain.
Exactly. Those aha moments are what makes learning so fun.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel inspired to try all of this out.
And remember, we've only just scratched the surface. The more you explore Obsidian, the more you'll discover what it can do.
So to everyone listening, I encourage you to give Obsidian a try. Start with a note about something you're interested in, something you want to learn or create. Then start linking it to other ideas and see where it takes you.
And don't be afraid to share your discoveries and ask questions. We're all learning together.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Obsidian. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Keep learning, keep exploring, and until next time, happy note-taking.